Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Isaiah, the 61st chapter, as we went through in the 60th chapter, which dealt with the mercy of the Lord, okay, and how he would ultimately remember Israel, deliver Israel, and beautify and glorify his people. His people. Starting with the elect, okay, which would in turn glorify him. So this is Isaiah chapter 61, which is along the same lines, right? It goes into the healing of our people by this word, and ultimately the deliverance, the glory, and the beautification of the nation of Israel, right? And this is ultimately going to happen in the kingdom of heaven, all right? But it's there's a transition, right? There's going to be a transition from this low state that we're in, ultimately into that glorious state of everlasting joy. So Isaiah 61, exaltation of the afflicted, verse 1. The Spirit of the Lord Yahweh is upon me, because the Lord Yahweh hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. And the stead, all right, or the anointing of Isaiah to preach these words unto Israel is the same anointing that the Lord has put upon us, and really the rest of the other prophets that came on the scene, because their job was to preach a message, okay, which was ultimately good tidings, right? And so if you notice, even in some of the other prophets, like Ezekiel, Zechariah, like all the other prophets, they would prophesy about the disobedience of Israel and the judgment to come for it, but they would also include the mercy of the Lord. So that's why when you read in some of those books, some of the chapters in there, you'll notice there's talks of judgment, but there's also talks of at the end, right, in that day, the Lord will have mercy on Israel and turn again the captivity of Judah. So ultimately, it always ends with the mercy of the Lord. And here, being anointed, meaning being chosen to preach this message onto the meek. Now, the meek of the earth as a whole is the nation of Israel. But those of the nation of Israel who would actually hear this and take heed to these tidings are the elect. Okay. And so the meek here really start with the elect of the nation of Israel. As it says, he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. And when you bind up the brokenhearted, the word bind up there is used as a representation of healing. So if you have somebody that is injured or hurt, and you treat their wound, you cover it up, right? You bandage it up, right? Or bind it up to keep it, contained, right? So nothing, no bacteria or anything goes in there, and so on. So it's really another way of saying to heal those that are brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty, which is in this case the freedom here, to the captives, which are us, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. Now, how was Isaiah doing this? And once again, applying to us, because we're in the same stead. How are we doing this? Is through the word of the Lord, right? The binding up of the brokenhearted is by way of this gospel, because even us, right, at one point were in that state of you being in this life, in this captivity, and obviously going through whatever you may be going through that may not be good, but you're constantly stressed, having to deal with this kind of lifestyle, the stigma, just the unsuitable way of living. And so by hearing this word and this gospel, and now being given that hope that you don't have to live like this forever. In fact, above all these other people who look down on you, you're really the top nation above them all, right? And the Most High is not. the God of everybody. He's your Father. Right? So in due time, he will come and deliver us. We will get the glory. We will get the blessings. Like all of those things which are being taught in this gospel are a form of healing the brokenhearted of our people. And those that are truly brokenhearted are those that have the eyes to see, that know at least to some degree that something is not right. But yet they have to live in this life, which leads to them feeling that, brokenhearted or, in that non-joyful state. So by hearing this word is likened onto that healing. And that's why we cling so strongly onto it, because it is our healing to proclaim liberty to the captives, right? And so when you look at us in our history, we've been in captivity so much more than we have been, at the top, being the captors. But we've been in captivity so long that all Jake knows is captivity, right? And so by proclaiming liberty or that freedom to the captives, we are, letting our people know that, hey, this life of captivity we're in, having to work for somebody, being subject to them, you don't really have control of yourself because you're in somebody else's kingdom. The Lord is going to change all of that. He's literally going to break and destroy this kingdom, and he's going to deliver us, and where we're actually going to be free and get to live life. All right, not be subject onto this BS system. You want to know if you're a captive, try to do otherwise than what they tell you, and you'll see. And the opening of the prison to them that are bound, right? And you have this in a literal sense, but mainly in a spiritual sense, where our people are imprisoned really in their minds, right? And so by this word being preached, that prison is being opened, okay? And that's why the scriptures say that know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And so we're being freed from the bounds of this deception that has been pushed on us for generations. And this is how the Isaiah and the rest of the prophets, even up unto us in this day, are healing or binding up the brokenhearted and proclaiming liberty and so on and so forth, is by us pushing this word. And the side effect of this word being taught is this healing, right? Or these effects that it's having on our people. Verse 2, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, right? And so the acceptable year of the Lord is the day or the time period in which the Lord has chosen to be, the time when he is going to make his return and bring that salvation to Israel. And we're proclaiming that, hey, that's coming soon, right? When you read in some of the chapters in the book of Isaiah, you'll see mention of in that day, okay, or at that time shall the Lord do this and shall the Lord do that. And we're preaching the same thing now. So we're proclaiming the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of the vengeance of our God, because they're going to go hand in hand, right? The day of the vengeance of our God is also going to be the day of our redemption or our deliverance. And that vengeance is going to come upon the wicked of our people and the rest of these nations, okay, or the rest of our enemies, so to speak, to comfort all that mourn. And who are they that mourn? You can read in Ezekiel 9:4, all right, and it tells you they that are mourning are those that are of the elect, because when you look at the mindset that the rest of our people are in, a good portion of them like it so, right? Because this is all they've known. And even when you try to teach them that there's a better way, they don't want it. So those that are mourning are those that know better. I believe King Solomon said that, right? In much, roughly paraphrasing, like if you increase in knowledge, you increase in sorrow. Because now we know what the world should be like, and we're aware of what it is like and how we're stuck in it as it is. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes. See, and the appointing, when you look into that word, it's like to establish, okay, or to transform into. So how is that going to happen? And who are they that mourn in Zion? They that mourn in Zion are the elect, the Lord's chosen, and the Lord is going to appoint unto them by setting us up, right? Lord willing, we're of that number, setting us up and transforming us from this rags to riches, so to speak. as it says, to give unto them beauty for ashes. Now, ashes were symbolic of mourning or being in a distraught or destroyed state, because when something bad happened, you would put on sackcloth and you would put ashes upon you. But here the Lord is saying he's going to replace that for beauty. And beauty is associated with what? Joy. The oil of joy for mourning. So instead of mourning, we're going to be so joyful. It's like being anointed, right, with joy. The garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Once again, so instead of being in that spirit of heaviness, sad or vexed, we're going to be praised, right, to the point where it's going to be like you're wearing it. That's how glorious the Lord is going to make us, that they might be called trees of righteousness. And when we say the Lord is going to make us glorious, people glorify great things. So for the Lord to take us from this state of, being in this, basically the last of the nations, at least the world looks at us as such, and actually delivering us, one, making the world know that he is associated with us, and two, actually transforming us into actual, gods, glorified with power, with, just dominion. All of those things are going to put us in a position to where the other nations would look at us and praise us. And really, in doing so, they would praise the Heavenly Father, right? Bahasham Yahushai. That they might be called trees of righteousness. Some, in the scriptures, we're likened unto trees. And one thing, if you look at trees, there's some trees that grow and live for a very, very, very long time. Okay, which is symbolic because we're ultimately going to live forever. But trees also, like, depending on the kind of tree, they tend to bear a whole lot of fruit. And we read about that, I believe, in the previous chapter, about the Lord making one, into a nation, a little one into a mighty nation. In any case, it says the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified, right? Because when when the plant or the tree is successful, the husbandman is glorified for it. And in this case, the husbandman is the Most High, and we are his planting. And they shall build the old wastes. They shall raise up the former desolations. So all those places that had been destroyed or made destitute, because remember that this glorification, this acceptable year of the Lord and the day of his vengeance, that's going to involve the fulfillment of this Third World War, right? Or Jacob's trouble. And that's going to lead to a lot of destruction. So once the Lord delivers us and he beautifies us, and we're correcting and putting the earth back in righteous order again, that's going to involve the rebuilding of these places that were wasted, right? That were destroyed. And so as it says, they shall build the old wastes and shall raise up the former desolations. And we're not going to be physically doing that, right? We're going to have these nations that are going to do it because they're going to serve us. They're going to be our servants. And they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations, right? So the places that have been desolate for a long time, they're going to all be rebuilt and made, habitable again. Verse 5, and strangers, which these strangers are the actual heathens, shall stand and feed your flocks. So they're going to be like our herdmen, our workers, taking care of our flocks, taking care of our animals. And the sons of the alien, which are once again heathens, shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. So once again, our workers. But ye shall be named the priests of the Lord Yahweh, because we're going to be made holy. Men shall call you the ministers of our God, right? The servants of the Most High. And what this means is we're going to be directly associated, right, with the Lord. It's no longer going to be a question about it. We're not going to have to be the ones to tell people or tell our people that we are the chosen of the Lord. The people are going to be the ones, making mention of that. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves. And the riches of the Gentiles, that's self-explanatory. meaning we're going to use, consume, right, their riches, their resources. That's their glory, right? So you don't actually eat riches, right? You don't eat gold, you don't eat silver. The way you eat is when you spend it or you use it. And so as we read in the previous chapter, our gates are going to be continually open, and they're going to bring to us the forces of the Gentiles, and it's going to be for our use. That is what is meant by eating the riches of the Gentiles. And because you have a lot of minerals and precious stones and gold and silver in various parts of the world, and they're going to bring that all to us. And in their glory shall ye boast yourselves, right? So the things that these different regions or nations stand out for, right? Their resources, we're gonna utilize that, and we're not gonna be living on a low level, right? We're gonna be living lavish. We're gonna be living it up, so to speak, right? So that's why it mentions, shall we boast ourselves? For your shame, ye shall have double, right? So for the shame that we had to suffer and go through, the Lord is going to give us honor that is double of that. And for confusion, they, which the day is still talking about Israel, shall rejoice in their portion, right? So basically, for the bad, the Lord will return good, but the good that he's going to return is going to be double of what we had to go through in terms of the bad. And that's why the Apostle Paul mentioned that the sufferings that we're going through are not worthy to be compared to the glory that shall be revealed in us. So our portion, right, going into our blessings, our land, all the things the Lord is going to bless us with. Therefore, in their land, they shall possess the double. See, everlasting joy shall be unto them. And so, pulling this up in the NLT. Okay. Instead of shame and dishonor, you will enjoy a double share of honor. You will possess a double portion of prosperity in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours. And that's going to be literal, right? We're actually going to be living that kind of life very soon. For the Lord Yahweh, or for I, the Lord Yahweh, love judgment. In this case, judgment in the sense of like justice, right? Or what's executing, what's right in society. I hate robbery for burnt offering, because a burnt offering, right, which was what you would bring and offer to the Lord, it had to be pure. You couldn't come and offer something that you got by deceit or you stole, right, and then come and offer that to the Lord. In fact, the Lord said that if you come to try and give an offering and you have aught with your brother or your neighbor, you got to go and fix that and then come back, right? So in other words, the Lord is saying he hates, wickedness. He loves justice. And so, right, I will direct their work in truth. So everything that we do is going to be directed of the Lord to be executed righteously. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And this covenant is going to be one in which it's going to be everlasting, because we're never going to break it. And the way we're never going to break it is a part of the nature of the covenant. By the Lord putting the law, statutes, and commandments in our inward parts, we're going to literally live in righteousness. And so we cannot break the covenant by, committing wickedness, and therefore it'll be everlasting. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, right? So us and our generations, our offspring, are going to be known amongst all of existence, throughout all the planets and galaxies which we eventually populate. Like today, presidents are known, historical figures are known. Well, we are going to be known and recognized. And their offspring among the people, all that see them shall acknowledge them. Now, today we're acknowledged as one of the most violent and undesired people. But in that time, how are we going to be acknowledged? Well, it goes on to say that they are the seed which the Lord Yahweh hath blessed. So that's how we're going to be known and acknowledged, as the seed that is blessed of the Lord. Those are the Lord's chosen people. Those are the Lord's special people. A position or a role that the small hats are trying to force upon the world to see them as. Verse 10, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord Yahweh. My soul shall be joyful in my God, for he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation, right? And this is poetic speak. But being clothed with the garments of salvation means you've been, I mean, in the bare sense, it means the Lord has delivered us, right? But it's written as though, you know, the salvation has been so great, it wraps around you like clothes, right? He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, and as a bridegroom decketh herself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. So similar to how a bridegroom or a bride puts, you know, these jewels and stuff on them, that's how the Lord is going to put righteousness and salvation on us. Verse 11, for as the earth bringeth forth her bud, so like a plant that you plant into the earth and eventually it buds and brings forth, you know, it springs forth out of the earth. And as the garden causeth the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord Yahweh will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations. You see, so that's what it's going to look like when the Lord brings that deliverance to us. The earth is going to be brought back to peace again, and righteousness is going to spring forth, right? Like one that has been in the ground for so long, and now it's finally germinating, or, you know, growing out of the ground, right? And then now beginning to flourish. And that brings us to the end of the book of Isaiah, the 61st chapter. As I mentioned, right, going into the deliverance of Israel, right, by the Lord, or as it says here, the exaltation of the afflicted. So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.